York to the world. Subscribe now to the Hot 97 YouTube channel. It's Ebro in the Morning with Laura Stiles and Rosenberg.
Ari Melber's on with Ebro, Laura Rosenberg. Welcome back to the program. Listen, the show's been going on for so long. I was on so long ago. You've been successful for so long. How am I supposed to remember this?
That's fair. Thank you, man. Thank you. We hit the milestone. The average amount of time that shows have been on MSNBC at 6 p.m. is 9 months.
Oh, wow.
You know, people think, oh, you get on TV, just like they might think that about radio. In fact, you guys have been doing this. You've established yourself for so long. You know what it takes. And so we just hit that milestone in September, and we're thrilled, and it's our team, and I'm proud of them, and we're just going to keep going. But it's also a credit to, like, everyone who's been able to come through, you guys, artists, musicians, activists, writers, politicians. I think they've made the show stronger.
Who was the previous longest run in the 6 o'clock history?
Yeah, who'd you beat?
Shout out to Al Sharpton, who went for about 4 years and about 1,000 shows. But, you know, one of the things about the news is there are different pockets, different hours. 6 is hard for cable news because you're up against all the nightly networks.
Yep.
And shout out to the competitors. You know, Wolf Blitzer is on at CNN at 6, and he's been doing it like over a decade, so people know him. So for us to be able to stay on, and it is, you know, it is what it is. It's a competition. We've really been audience CNN at 6 or any hour of CNN now. So the beat, some people know the beat from certain things, but big picture, a lot of people know the beat because we're like where people are coming for news right now. We don't take that for granted. But
listen, I'll be honest. I don't even remember the era BW. That's before Wolf. You know what I mean? I don't even know what that era was. He's been on for so long. What is BW? What happened before Wolf Blitzer?
His emergence was the Gulf War. So you'd be going back. Wolf became big during the Gulf War.
There you go.
You'd be going pre-92.
Hey, yo, shout to Wolf. You know what I'm saying?
Shout out to Wolf.
That guy is...
Do you realize he's a family friend my whole life? So to me, he was just my dad's friend with the weird name.
Oh.
And then all of a sudden...
So his real name is Wolf Blitzer?
Yeah, his name's always been Wolf Blitzer. And when
shout to his parents.
And when I was 13, all of a sudden, I was like, why?
And how do you think Ari Melber feels right now that we're interviewing him and talking about his competition?
Yeah, but he's bodying. Listen, I'll tell you one thing. When it comes to 6 o'clock, if I'm watching a news show, I'm watching my guy Ari.
I mean, facts. Now, Ari,
I'll tell you what. I didn't even realize that's when Wolf was on. That's when the Situation Room's on. Nah, I'm watching the beat, fam. I'm watching the beat.
Ari, I watch you so much that I can tell the nights that you were hanging out with Fat Joe or 50 Cent the night before.
Can you?
I can.
How can you tell, bro?
The fact that you haven't shaven, and I know you had a glass of tequila the night before. Sometimes I look at your facial hair, I'm like, yo, he's hanging out with a rapper last night. Didn't get that shave this morning.
Yo,
wait, I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
Ari, has there ever been a time, in your show's history where you quoted, a lyric and you effed it up?
That's a great question.
So it's a great question. That's a great question. Sometimes I paraphrase, so people are like, "Did you get that wrong?" I was like, "No, I said to paraphrase whomever." I had a long pause once. I remember the bar actually because it was something about why the Grammys are historically racist and off base a lot of the time, and yet people covet, awards in many fields. And so, and you all have talked about that and interviewed artists about that. And so I was going for the J bar. We looked up to Billboard because we was young, and then I paused to finish it, and then I was like, that weird thing you guys do live, right? When you do live, sometimes I just
brain fart,
and then I paused for a long time, and then in the interview, people are like just waiting because no one else is going to help.
You don't have an assistant with a big board that has the line?
Yeah, don't you have the thing in your ear? Nobody came with the rest of the quote? Like, what's going on with your team?
I landed on, now we look at Billboard like, is you dumb? But it had taken so long that I could just feel in the moment, everyone being not like hearing what I said, but just being like, all right, he finished it.
Otherwise, you would have had to just like quietly see yourself out. Nothing else to do. Now,
sometimes you just got to fold and you be like, yo, I botched that one.
Well, by the way,
we're live. I botched it.
I saw a story this week about the person running MSNBC and trying to take a different approach for the network as a whole. Can you fill us in on anything that you're able to tell us about MSNBC and like what their plan is to try to? Oh, that's what it was. It was a controversy, guys, because they said MSNBC is like trying to go heads up against CNN and beat them, and people thinking this may not be a good idea. Can you take us through anything you know, Ari?
I think you're talking about, there was a pretty lengthy article in the New York Post about it. And so it was about sort of the news direction. I think like everything you see in media and online, you got to bring a little bit of skepticism because the New York Post
is the New York Post.
Once you said the New York Post, I tuned out. Actually, I just want you to
right. I mean, it's a context, and just for people who maybe aren't as into it as you guys are, or as I might be, the New York Post is part of the competition because they are aligned with the company that runs Fox News. So there's always a little bit of that. Having said that, like I'm always open to talking about, what part of it might be valid. They were talking about Rashida Jones, the other Rashida Jones,
right?
Who is our new president. I've known her over a decade. She's
the Post was coming after a black woman?
Producer. She also is the first black woman to run a TV news company in America. Shout out to her. But the part of it that I think Rosenberg's asking about that might be valid is she's put a big emphasis on making sure that MSNBC is competitive in every way. And in the numbers, sometimes those evening shows, I'm on at 6, Rachel's our leader at 9. Sometimes those evening shows do great, and there's been a question about how competitive is MSNBC with the hard news during the day, as they put it. And she wants us to be competitive across the board. I think it was partly about that. But yeah, we obviously want to, like any news organization, be up on every part of what people need to get when they are looking for the news.
Switching to more of the news talk with you, away from the shenanigans and celebrating you for just being amazing and our friend. Let's talk about the current administration, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and the guffaws or bad polling or, Afghanistan and the vaccine and vaccine hesitancy and the midterms. Does all of this stuff lining up, and the fact that the infrastructure bill is not getting done and the Voting Rights Act is not getting done, and it looks like police reform is not going to get done, with all of these things lining up, and obviously Republicans are doing it going into the midterms, making it even harder because they want to win seats and make Biden and his team and any other Democrat look bad. Is it lining up to be really hard for the Democrats at the midterms?
Probably. You just ran through a bunch of the issues, and there's even more than that. I think Biden had a very good start objectively, in the sense that he pivoted off this tough time. They went further on the pandemic, and they got the stimulus spending. All of those were the hot button priority issues. And he also benefited, just as he did in the election, not from necessarily being everyone's first choice, but being not Trump. If anyone's ever been in a toxic situation, toxic job, toxic relationship, once you get out, there can be a relief. And then whatever's new, you're like, well, this at least isn't my old job. This at least in the old relationship. And depending on the person, that halo can be a honeymoon of a few months, could even be a year. I don't think for most people, and I don't think for the American electorate, it's 2, 4, 8 years, because you say, okay, we don't have that. What do we have now? And you see that, by the way, what I'm saying is rooted in the approval. Joe Biden still has higher approval now, which includes independents and some conservatives, than Donald Trump ever had his whole 4 years.
That's great context.
That's actually wild if you think about it, because it's not like everybody loved Joe Biden to begin with.
No, and it's been a rough couple of months.
Party. And there's been problems. And it's still higher than Trump ever was. So that just sort of reminds you of that. Having said that, to the points you made, Ebro, I mean, there is a real question about whether he can do more than the emergency stuff. So the pandemic and the stimulus felt like that. And we're talking right now in a week where they're trying to get everybody back together to do some real spending. I think if he's able to do that, there will be a bounce off that, but there's a debate over that. You mentioned police reform. This has been already a huge failure. We've covered it on the B. We were covering this before the talks broke down within the last few weeks, because 6 months ago, the message coming out of the Democrats and the Biden administration was, well, we need to work with Republicans for a few months to see where we can get on police reform. And I showed on my program, Republicans are saying in public that reforming the legal immunity that police use is off the table. Well, every civil rights leader that we've had on the beat that we talked to says that's essential. That's part of why this stuff keeps recurring. That's right. Among other reasons.
That's right.
And structural
qualified
racism.
immunity is it, B. That's it.
So why would you spend that much time on that? I was saying on my program to my viewers, if you already know that that's their line, then sure enough, the talks fall apart. This was an issue not only in 2020, obviously, where it got more attention, but this is an issue in the base and the working class support of the Democratic Party and minority communities and other people who care about these issues who may or may not be minorities. This is a huge issue. So how are you going to come in year one and just drop it completely? And you haven't heard the president come out and lead on that because he's focused on the stimulus stuff. So I think they're juggling a lot. And yes, I think the midterms could be tough politically.
Speaking of the vaccine, and we were talking on our show about all of this sucks, right? Is kind of what I've been saying, which is a virus that's killing hundreds of thousands of people sucks. Our handling of that sucks. Wearing masks sucks. Lining up to get a vaccine. I don't know anybody that gets in line for a shot in their arm and is like, woohoo, let's go, right? Like it all was challenging. It all sucked. It was all bad. And now we're at the point where people specifically in New York City where we live, there's people who are going to lose their jobs and have already been furloughed or going to lose their jobs, whether you work in healthcare or whether you work in public schools or other industries that, even have something to do with the city. It's happening at the state. And with Biden saying, look, if you have a corporation that has over more than 100 employees, the expectation is there's going to be vaccines or people are going to get one shot a week. Federal employees, it's pretty much you got to get the vaccine. All of this is drawing some hard lines. Do you see this, and Rosenberg has articulated this, do you see this being a hot button voting issue?
I mean,
forthcoming.
And specifically, Ari, my concern is that if this is handled the wrong way and we as Democrats who are pro-vax continue to crush people on this issue, it becomes a one-issue voter situation where there are a lot of people who might actually vote red if they think that is the vaccine choice party. Is that a risk?
So I think it's a very, very fair question, important question. I think there's two things going on. There's what do most people actually think, and then there's passion. And this is the same in music. You could have an artist that has broad general awareness, and then you have an artist that has real passionate fans, all the real hip hop that Rosenberg's been supporting, all the real lyricists, right?
Purists, and the core.
The pure, the street. But I'm not joking. If you actually look at the numbers, take Florida, which leans more right, has a Republican MAGA governor and all of its drama. The majority of people in Florida still support mask mandates. So broadly, people have gotten the science that this stuff generally works, even though, as you put it eloquently, Ebro, it sucks. And likewise, there's broad support for not only the vaccine, but vaccine mandates, which of course are more controversial because anytime anyone, your employer or the government, tries to make you do something, that goes to our sense of freedom and liberty. And there's a long American debate about that, and that's older than this era and Trump. So broadly, I think where Biden is actually where most people are. But the passion, there's a lot of passion.
The loud minority is...
There's a lot of passion for don't tell me what to do. And then you add in something that trips up a lot of Democrats and liberals, even if they may be holding on to a certain good idea, which is condescension, snobbery, acting like you have it figured out better than anyone else. At the same time, it is a brand new problem, right?
And nobody has it figured out.
The last 2 years.
Nobody has it completely figured out.
So that's why, like, on my program, I make sure, like, make up your own mind about what to do with your health, your body, your community. We do a lot of evidence and facts. So if you're trying to make up your mind and it's based on something that 20 years ago would have been written on a bathroom stall, this and that about Joey, and by the way, the vaccine is a Bill Gates tracking device. Well, it's not true. And the fact that instead of being on a bathroom stall, it's on Facebook doesn't make it any more credible. I don't recommend you use that to make up your mind. But if you get all the science and you decide to make your decision, it's not my job as a news anchor, and that's my credibility with my audience to tell you what to do. And so then if you have, I think to your point, or maybe Rosenberg's point, people condescending and trying to act like there's only one way, and if you didn't figure it out, you're
well. You know what it is, Ari?
Yeah, that could backlash.
Right, and do you notice, just like on a personal level, Ari Melber, the human being, I think that you and I, while you are much more knowledgeable, we line up on a lot of political, socio-political issues.
You say he's not much more?
No, I said he is much more.
I was about to say.
Even when I try to do the right thing, you have to.
I heard it wrong.
Yeah,
man.
You did. So
all right, focus.
We socio-politically we line up quite a bit, and I have just found myself recently sort of annoyed and grossed out, frankly, by my fellow progressives that their only way they see vaccine hesitant people is that they're selfish. They are, for lack of a better word, they're assholes. They don't care about anyone. To me, painting such a huge group, 83% of black folks in New York are not vaccinated. painting that big a group with that broad a brush to me is incredibly not only dangerous, but it's just, frankly, it's just disappointing to see people who I generally align with politically talking that way. What do you think?
I think it's a very fair point. You're also in essence, Rosenberg, you're talking about empathy. So when you reach a situation where you might even strongly disagree with someone, do you have empathy with them for not? Now, if they're a white supremacist, MAGA insurrectionist,
right,
they may have burned up all their empathy, and for that reason, you say double no. But someone else where you say, can I understand where they're coming from? Do I understand the information they're using? Do I understand their fear or their emotional reasons? Do you have any empathy for that or not? And I think what you're referring to is something that happens generally in politics, because there's a lot of research, even before the internet era, that people who get intense about politics can spend time with other people who have the same views, and their views actually harden. And that happens on the left and the right. And that happens in this room and that room. And so I'm not making moral equivalency, because hardening one view might be different than hardening the rampant violent racism that we're dealing with in our politics right now. But yeah, I think hardening that way and then condescending to and having no empathy for people is wrong. And I also think the COVID wars, what I call it, turned something that didn't used to be all that partisan into a partisan filter. And again, we know a lot about how that works, which is people stop listening to things through the filter. So 5 years ago, if someone did not get a flu shot, I don't know that the same people that are wiling out would make as big a deal about it and say you're being selfish. But at a lesser level, but a non-zero level, people who chose not to get a flu shot and ran all around the city and got near, if you're out in Bed-Stuy and Crown Heights and you end up near a senior center, past the flu, elderly people do get the flu and die. It's not COVID. But did we have that same energy? Or has this become partisan because Trump made so much noise that now people feel extra bad?
That's what Ebro said today on the show.
Not a great read.
Yeah, we just talked about that.
I haven't heard the show yet.
Yeah, we just
shout out to the show.
Yeah, we just talked about that this morning, and I gave us all
congratulations, you played yourself.
Because people are losing jobs, dying, trying to figure it out. It's a situation where science doesn't even have it figured out. Doctors are figuring it out. Everybody's figuring it out real time, and it became a partisan thing from the gate. Even, with Kamala and a lot of Democrats saying they weren't going to get the vax if Trump rolled it out, because they felt like it was too rushed and it wasn't researched well enough. And if he were to roll it out when he's president, they weren't going to do it. And then people ran with that for the Republican side once the Democrats were in there. And then now it's you have people, like you said, hardened their stance on it because it became, picking football teams, red or blue.
Yeah,
and it's not, and this isn't a political conversation for me. This is a science health conversation, which I hate when that gets politicized. Just like I hate when homelessness gets politicized, and I hate when making sure kids have food and people have food in their fridge gets like those are human issues for me. And so it's frustrating, but we always fall into that in this American social experiment.
Another issue we're very divided on in this country, and I think it's a problem, is an issue that we don't need to be divided on because they're unrelated issues, and that is Certified Lover Boy and Donda.
I knew you were going to go there.
And, well, I have to, because when I go on Ari's show, the level of trolling he does, I went on his show 2 months ago. Whatever, 2 months ago? Yeah, it was 2 months ago or so.
Yeah, the new album.
My album. I was a little. Ari was kind enough to let me come on, promote the album, etc. Because I really want to make sure that liberal Jews, I want my parents to go out and turn around and cop real late. So Ari's a gentleman and had me on the show.
Hey, Ari's audience is hip hop fans. It's probably really focused on the demographic that you serve in making that album.
That is
people who want that kind of core, gritty,
street level music.
Yeah, hearkening to the 90s style hip hop.
I'm just trolling Ari slightly back. So whenever I go on the show, all he talks to me about is Drake. Ebro, he ran video. He ran the video of that time at SOBs when Kanye walked in the Drake interview. He ran that video and just asked me Drake questions.
That elevator. Shout out to young Rosenberg. That elevator video is hard. If anyone's hearing this, you can go find it on YouTube. You have a young Drake sipping hot tea in an elevator, and then a Kanye coming out. And in today's lights, and then we love this in hip hop and journalism. It's just why the clip from that Kanye Netflix documentary is exciting. Like the young Mos Def and Kanye, that interview elevator moment is hard. And tell me if I'm wrong, all three of you experts, That moment couldn't happen today. You could not have that moment, right? Where Drake comes out
It's
of LA.
very
Kanye's
well.
there,
Rosenberg is not invited anywhere where Drake is. B, Drake and Kanye would not be in the same building together if they can help it. And so, yeah, you're right.
And Laura, and then Peter also. Laura recently called Peter a Drake stan, or hater and stan.
Yeah.
Hater
no.
Hater stan is like a special country. So it's not just
take it
me.
a step further. I think Rosenberg wrote a stan letter.
It was a joke. I didn't actually write a letter.
I mean, you did a whole bit on your podcast,
right?
Calling yourself,
admitting that it seems like I'm a little obsessive. What is the deal? Now, I'm not obsessive the way Ari's obsessed with Drake. Ari loves. Ari,
do you DM Drake and ask him how come you're not DMing me back?
No, but I do love Drake. But I think that Rosenberg's relationship is deeper and more personal than mine. And in that, it comes from his proximity being a hip-hop journalist and hip-hop radio figure for many years. So it's personal, it's more layered, and that I think makes it more interesting. To me as a hip-hop fan, I'm interested when I see Laura and Rosenberg and Ebro talk to people over the years, or I was watching your guys' interview with Tyler, the Creator, and just the epistemology of that interests me. So that's me as a fan. Having said that, Rosenberg, that also makes your relationship more Stan adjacent than mine because mine's not personal.
Well done.
Good point.
While we have you, you listen to a lot of music. You have a show on Apple Music.
Wait, are we going to finish the? But before we go there, Rosenberg.
Yeah.
Are we going CLBV Donda? Is that?
Yeah. Well, listen. I know you care. I know it's an issue that separates a lot of people, and while it's unnecessary, what album do you find yourself going back to more, Donda or CLB?
CLB, and I believe CLB will grow and gestate like Views as an album that was initially seen as, yes, it's Drake, and so of course it does all the pop success of Drake,
but it's great material on there, man.
Not as embraced initially, and then over time becomes another classic in the canon. It is sonically.
Oh, you calling
really
Drake?
Consistent.
Ari Melber calls Drake "Certified Lover Boy" a classic.
A gestating classic.
A gestating classic.
It'll get there. It'll get there. You're saying.
And you're saying Views is there for you.
For me, I think Views is there. Tell me what you guys think. Has Views not aged so well and has so many bangers on it and global hits that now I think it's seen in a different light than it was when it came out?
I think the trouble that hip-hop fans have, like your purist fans have with giving Drake a classic album through the hip-hop lens, is there are so many records that aren't quintessential hip-hop records. Like he's got singing records, he's got Caribbean-sounding records, he's got, UK rap, you know what I mean? He's got all of these different energies where he's not even rapping. So a lot of people in hip-hop have a hard time putting the word classic next to a Drake album, but a lot of people usually point to Take Care, not Views. Drake fans point to Views. Drake fans point to several Drake albums, but I think the kind of that because there's just different types of music on it that are not rap, it's hard for some people to give Drake that classic.
It's an interesting thing. There's like two conversations. There's the just stating, if you will, the time it takes to realize that an album's a classic. And then there's the albums that had a moment where culturally everyone was on board. Like, oh my God, this is a moment. We're having it right now. And it has happened. I would argue it happened to some degree with the last J. Cole album. It certainly happened with multiple Kendrick albums where culturally everyone said, yup, it's happening right now. And I feel like with Drake fans, the thing that's interesting is when I go, what's the Drake classic? If I ask 5 Drake fans, everyone gives me a different answer. And I find that to be fascinating versus if you ask Wu-Tang fans, what's the classic? They go, Enter the Wu-Tang, Only Built for Cuban Links, Supreme Clientele. They know the ones. No one jumps in and goes, Inspector Deck, Uncontrolled Substance. That's not what they do. So I always find the Drake conversation interesting because culturally it hasn't quite been decided.
I think that, but at the same time, that's what makes Drake phenomenal and an enigma,
yes.
and in many ways changing the game is the fact that he has served so many different audiences very well and does a great job at it.
I think you're both making the important point, and Rosenberg's right. I mean, we live in a time of such abundance and speed for so many things, content and culture and music, and you get it, you listen to it, you listen twice, now you're dismissing it, you just got it. And we don't have the time. That's why I made the point about the marination, the gestation. But also, to Rosenberg's point, we live in a time of such abundance that people literally go, that album was too long. This album had too many songs. I'm like, who are you? Like,
oh, that is us. We say that all the time.
Yeah, that's it. Who are you? It's me.
And me.
The artist made this amazing thing, and if you like a bunch of it, you're getting the ratio you want, and you go pick it because we live in streaming. Right. And by the way, so Drake is one of the best musical cultural buffet chefs ever, which is different than just getting one dish. And some people might beat him at just that one dish and keep giving it to you. But who goes to an amazing, 4 Seasons buffet on the beach and then says, too many choices this buffet? I don't even like crab.
Well, first of all, an amazing buffet wouldn't have too many choices. It would have the right amount of choices at 4 Seasons. I've been to the 4 Seasons buffet. They have the right amount of choices. And Drake usually has the right amount of choices, which is why Drake is great. Drake doesn't, his album, I mean, he might do 4 too many in my opinion, but it's not 30 too many. I mean, there's albums that people come out.
Right.
That it's like,
listen, Certified Lover Boy is
35 songs.
Is like 10 minutes shorter than Donda. And Donda got crushed for being too long.
Because it was too many bad choices. Not too many choices. People always say it's too much when there's bad ones. Not when it's good ones. Right?
Yeah, I guess you're right. The Drake choices, none of them are bad. It's just, to Ari's point, there's a bunch that I'm not interested in.
That's right.
They're not for me. I'm not getting the crab at the buffet.
That's right.
I want to get the hamburger and the French fries.
And what was the Scorpion album? I thought that one side he could have got completely get rid of it. Like the more hip hop side for me was phenomenal. And if that would have been the album, I guarantee hip hop would have called that a classic.
Here's the hard question. We all know Drake his melodies are incredible. He's one of the great melody guys in music, people in music.
Yeah.
Is he reluctant to just make that 13-song hip-hop album?
Yeah, because you're putting him in a box.
No, but you could, by the way, to Ari's point, though, 2 months later, he could drop the R&B one. But if he wants to get in the game of review my hip-hop album, I want this to stand with the other hip-hop albums, I wonder why he hasn't done that.
Because he'd be doing what people are pressuring him to do instead of what he wants to do.
Is that what he wants to do, or is he kind of scared of getting
I don't think he's scared. I don't think it's fear.
Yeah, I don't think it's fear either.
Couldn't be. I'm not, unless he tells me that, I'm not buying that. And he won't tell me that because he doesn't talk to me. So I don't know if we'll ever hear. But I think it's 100% you'd be putting him in a box.
Ari, what do you think?
We don't always know with certain artists or people how much they're thinking about it the way we might, because we actually don't have enough information about their kind of cultural diet. Or people say Kendrick put his phone down for however long. And by the way, I have a theory about that, you guys, which is like, okay, they say Kendrick just stayed off his phone for like 6 months while he's in this period of creative time. But Baby Keem won't stop talking about having 2 phones.
It's very confusing.
It's one of those phones Kendrick's phone.
Well said.
I'm just putting that out there.
It might be.
I'm just putting that out there.
But at least Kendrick didn't lie to us. If Baby Keem has his phone, Kendrick put it down and his cousin picked it up.
That's it.
There you go. Respect. I'm just putting that out there as the question for the streets. But with regard to Drake, we do know enough about him and the kind of way he lives and how conversant he is with culture and what's hot on the internet. You guys, I think we're talking recently about him, like donning the jersey is something that was dropped 2 days before that was like a specialized, bespoke thing you couldn't get your hands on. Yeah, Netflix. We know enough about him to say that I think to the points you guys are raising, we know that he is hyper aware of his own position in the game and how things will be interpreted. So when he does tracks like Laugh Now, Cry Later, when he knows he has an album cooking and he has such a fine-tuned sense of how they would play and play more broadly at events and clubs than other stuff, and make sure to drop that and not put it on the album, and then have other songs go to the top when he drops Scary Hours and has those 3 songs all go top 3, meaning any one of them would have been number 1 if he didn't drop them at the same time, and one of them is a 6-minute freestyle with Rick Ross, and that's not on the new project. To me, those are all deliberate flexes. They're industry flexes to say, I'll be on the top of the charts when I don't have the project and I don't need the radio single that y'all used to have. And then my song with Thames and my Right Said Fred remix will be the single. Like anything will be the single. that to me is like a procedural flex that most artists can't even think through.
See, but I think that's a really interesting point. But I think it works to actually my argument that he wants to have the battle. And I'm not knocking this, by the way. Do whatever strategy you want. I think he wants to get the wins where he knows he can get them, and he doesn't want to set himself up. He's not going to take. I don't think Drake's the guy who's taking the fight where there's a good chance he could get knocked out. And by the way, when I say good chance to get knocked out, I just mean it's tough to drop. If you want to jump next to two good ladies, that's tough.
I agree with you, but Peter, did Sun Tzu not say the true warrior only fights battles he's already won?
Thank you, Ari. And this is why you're here.
Ari Melber, check him out, 6 o'clock, MSNBC. Before you go, Ari, is Certified Lover Boy your album of the year, though, so far? And if not, what is?
Honestly, from my heart, Melodic Blue is my album so far this year.
Baby Keem.
Because of the energy and the freshness and seeing a young artist who's capturing a lot of this really new, evolving, and sometimes emotional sound, but with more of the lyrics that I connect to.
No, he gets to him. Baby Keem gets to him.
That's what speaks to me.
Yeah, he gets to him.
Is dope and underrated, which is a crazy thing to say, but actually true.
There it is. Ari Melber.
Ari.
Thank you for coming by the program.
Thank you.
Congratulations
Love you
on all your success, man.
Thank you, guys.
All right, see you soon.
Bye, Ari.
Peace, bro.
Stay out the club, man. Shave. You know what I mean? All this coming in at 3 a.m. Knock it off.